Nice full body stuff. We're going to get in lots of cars, some isometrics, some eccentric stuff. So should be a good one. Good full body stuff. If you do have a stick or pole or something, that'll be good, especially for balance. And it's really all you really need. Don't need too much. For today, we are going to start off standing. Yeah, so we'll start standing. We are going to, feet can be hip width apart. You can adjust if you want. And we're going to do some pelvis circles. So just standing, we're going to kind of get our midsection moving a little bit. You take your pelvis, draw a big circle. So kind of like your slow motion hula hooping. Now you're going to try and push the pelvis as far as it'll go in all directions. So we'll go all one direction for now, and then I'll let you know when we can switch. Here we go. Yeah, so you can spend more time if you reach a certain direction and you feel like you really need it. You can spend more time there. You can go back and forth a little bit. Yeah. And now you can switch. So we'll switch directions. Push in the other way. And just see what you feel. So a lot of this stuff, as I always remind you with the cars, it is both training and assessment. So we're assessing how we feel, taking note of where we might feel limitations or tightness. Yeah. We'll just get another rep there. Alrighty, and then we're gonna move down to the toes. So we're gonna do some toe lifts. Work on foot and toe strength. And I'll show you here. So we'll start with the big toes. All right, we're going to try to lift the big toes without the other toes moving, if possible. So ideally, we want to keep our feet nice and steady, lifting the big toes, setting them down. Right, if that's really tough, that's totally cool. It often is. You can focus on just one foot at a time. I worked with, this week actually, siblings, two sisters, and one of them practices and is very mindful of her toes, and the other one is not at all. And it was really funny, the differences. The one had no control, and the other could individually lift most of their toes. So as you're going through this, you can also think about the lateral four toes. You could try to push them down to help get some lift of that big toe. If this is really tough, great thing to work on regularly. Can make a big difference. Now we're going to try to shift to the lateral four toes. So we want to try to keep the big toes pressed down and lift the other four if possible. Oh yeah. So with these, the tendency is for the foot and ankle to want to cave in to make it easier. So if that happens, that's okay. We just want to, over time, try to minimize that caving in. Oh yeah. And then if you're pretty good at this, you can focus on trying to really splay out those toes, driving them away from the big toe. Here we go. Whether this is tough or not, one way you can change it up a little bit and maybe even make it more doable is keeping the foot down. You can pull all the toes up. Most people can do that to some degree. And then try to push just the big toes down. Like so. So that's still kind of accomplishing that the lateral toes stay up, but sort of going about it backwards. And sometimes it's easier to control. And you'll probably feel those arches working. We'll just get a couple more. This is, by the way, very normal if your feet are feeling fatigued or crampy doing this. Oh yeah. All right, we'll give the toes a break. So we start with the middle, went down to the toes, now we're going back up to the top. We're going to do some neck cars. So for this, essentially drawing as big a circle as we can with our chin, nice and slow. So I'll take you through it. To start, we want to keep the shoulders low. Think about tucking your chin, rounding down toward your chest, and then we're going to bring that chin over toward your right shoulder, tip your right ear toward that shoulder, look back and up, tip the left ear to the left shoulder, try to rotate that chin over to the left shoulder, and round back down to the center. And I like to look up in between reps and retuck, round down. And let's do a couple reps that same direction. Okay, so if you don't want to think about it too much, just think about drawing a huge circle with that chin leading the way. And try to create as much space as you can at your neck. So you're stretching your chin and head away from the rest of your body to try to get a big stretch. As you finish your next rep, then you can go the other direction. So then you can go to the left. Try to keep the shoulders nice and still. Yeah. Big circle with the chin. Good. Taking your time. Take note of any angles that feel limited or tight or painful. We don't want to really push into the pain. We want to keep it pain-free, but you can still note where it might feel painful. Okay, and the last rep here. All right, and then you can relax a little bit, get your bearings. I really wish I used to have I had video of what my neck used to look like. It was so painful and so limited. Very different now, most of the time. So now we're gonna go to the shoulders. So I'm gonna we'll start with the left shoulder. We'll go palm up, externally rotating, and I'm gonna have you come across your chest, reach up as high as you can go. Once we really max that out up here, we're gonna rotate and turn, reaching back behind, down to our side, and then we can reverse it, palm back and up, rotate that palm, start turning it, turn the palm up and back. Good, we'll go for 2 more. All right, as big a range as you can get. If you're able to, we want to try and get way up overhead. Here we go. Yep, nice big circle. As you hit your sticking points, that's where you really want to focus on rotating the arm and shoulder. Great. Looking good. Looking good. Elbows staying nice and straight. These are looking solid here. Rebecca, I like how you're keeping the rest of your body nice and still. David and Mitch are a little more used to this stuff. Also looking good, guys. But yeah, it's not easy to keep the body still while the joint moves. As you finish your 3rd rep, you can relax there for a moment, and then we'll do the other shoulder. So most people are righty. I'm a lefty, so I often start on the left. But interesting to see differences between dominant and non-dominant arms. So for our right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go across the chest, up. Once you max out that overhead position, that's when we want to turn and rotate. The fun part of this stuff, I think, is as you get better at it and more used to it, you can intentionally challenge yourself. You could go slower, you could create a lot of internal tension. So with your joints, especially as you're switching sides, good opportunity to compare. If one side just feels more coordinated, that joint is probably a little bit healthier. Get used to moving. There we go. And you can certainly, and I encourage you, if certain ranges feel a little tighter or more challenging, you can spend more time there. You can slow it down through that part of the range. The tendency is for people to do the opposite and speed up where they don't feel comfortable. Whew. Looking good. All right. So now we are going to do hip cars. So if you have a wall or something to grab onto for balance, that's perfect. I use a stick. Oh yeah, we got an assortment of things. Oh, perfect. There we go. So we're gonna, with your outside hip or wherever you have space, we're gonna do the hip cars, very similar to the shoulders. So we're gonna come across our midline, pull up, try to pry that knee out, reach the ankle back and up behind us, and then down, and then we're gonna reverse it. So then back, pry the knee and ankle up, and then across our midline and down. All right, looking good. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll do 2 more. This tends to be the most energetically demanding of the cars. Whew. Nice big hurdle there. And we'll go for 1 more. We'll go for a third. So I take my morning walk and I get my light, and then I hold on to a like a stop sign pole, and I do my cars while I'm looking at the sun in the morning. And my neighbors probably think I'm a little bit of a lunatic, but that's okay. Healthy hips are worth it. And then yeah, we'll switch up the legs. So same thing. Also totally normal to feel that standing leg, that planted leg working to stabilize. So we'll go across the midline again, up, pry out, then reach that ankle and knee back and up. And then we'll reverse it, staying nice and tall. Up, across, down. Awesome. We'll go for 2 more there. There we go. Yep. Excellent. I love it. We're keeping the belly button, the chest mostly still there as that hip is moving. Back and across. All right, looking good. Looking good. Hopefully starting to warm up a little bit. So now we are going to come down to the floor. Oh yeah. And yeah, as always, I have to mention, you certainly can do these with ankle weights. Super fun. Adds a challenge. So for here, we're gonna come down to a quadruped position, and we're gonna work on the spine, work on segmental spinal control. So I'm gonna have us go nice and slow today. It'll be very fun. I'm gonna demonstrate. So this is, let's pretend this is like 3 times normal speed. You're rounding, and then we're going to droop, leading with the pelvis. Okay, so I want you to think about kind of using those lower abs. Tuck your tailbone, tuck your pelvis, so it's curling underneath you. And you're going to slowly round that low back. Slowly round that low back into the mid back, into the upper back. And you can tuck the chin. Once you're in that fully rounded position, then we can untuck, kicking that tailbone back and up, drooping through the low back, drooping through the mid back, the upper back, and you can look up. And we're trying to really move through each segment. You might not be able to feel them all, but that's what we want to try and do. So then you're going to do the same thing, tucking the pelvis, feel that low back rounding, mid back, upper back, and then chin, and then you can untuck. Good. So when you're drooping down, when you're extending the spine, we want to feel the backside working. So the muscles along your spine are contracting. as we're rounding, so as you're then tucking, like so, I want you to feel your abs, feel the front side of your body, those muscles working to contract and flex. Let's go for, wherever you are, we'll go for one more rep, drooping and rounding. Trying to consciously move one vertebrae at a time. Oh, Nancy's here. Here we go. All right, and then we'll finish there. We're going to go the other direction, but not yet. We're going to do a little something in between. So what we'll do is now work on the knees. I've had a little bit of knee pain myself. I found out yesterday I have a suspected ACL tear in my right knee. So that's cool. That's something. But regardless, this stuff really, really helps, whether you have structural damage or not. So we're going to do tibial rotations, which I have us do pretty much every class. Very important. So I'm going to have you keep your kneecap still, keep your thighs still, and you're going to try and rotate that shin in and out. Just like that. All right, so shin is moving, kneecap and thigh are staying still. It's a fundamental motion of the knee. We really want to be able to rotate like so. You might feel a lot of foot and ankle trying to steer. Ideally, we want to use the muscles of our thigh to do the work. So you might be able to see from here. It's more obvious this way, but I want to use these muscles to rotate that shin. As with other movements, if it's really tough to coordinate, that's okay. Your initial goal is just get movement there however you can. Over time, we'll hone it in. If this is pretty doable for you, you're used to it, then what I'd like you to do is add a little bit of resistance. You can actually grab your shin and pull it so that as you rotate, you're pulling against some resistance. Yeah. So with my knee injury, for example, and because I like to run and sprint and change directions, I do a lot of resisted knee rotation to strengthen all the tissues around my leg and knee. There we go. Yeah. Let's now switch it up. We'll try the other knee. All right, so we get to compare. We'll see how does this knee do compared to the other one. So same deal, we want the thigh and the kneecap to stay still while we rotate. This is also a really great tool for just reducing pain and inflammation. So if you ever have achy knees, you find yourself seated, you can do this right in a chair. Heel on the ground and just rotate in and out. Good, so same deal. We want to, over time, eventually shift the focus from here to here. This stuff is doing the work. Oh yeah. Same thing too. If you feel really confident and comfortable with that, you can try using a little resistance. Even if you don't, you can try it out because sometimes adding some resistance, pulling on that shin, can help you focus that movement a little more. Yeah. There we go. We'll just do a couple more there. I had this email and post I wrote up a while back about it was your joints are like puppies. They need attention. And if they don't get attention pretty regularly, they might whine a little bit, maybe you ignore them, but it's really not going to make the problem worse. Better if you ignore it. So, which of your puppies haven't gotten enough attention lately? It's a good focus. Okay, we can relax those knees. We're going to go back to the spine. So I'm going to do a little bit more spine. Same thing, segmental, just like we did before, but we're going to lead with the chin, which tends to be tougher. So if you start from a drooped position like this, we're going to lead with the chin. So I'm going to have you tuck your chin, round through your upper back, round through your mid back, your low back and tuck your tailbone. Then hold that tuck so your lower abs are working. You're going to look up, start drooping through the upper back first. Let that spread like a wave to the mid back, the lower back, and then kick that tailbone back and up. Awesome. And let's do a couple more like that. So same deal, leading with the chin. Slow wave. Trying to imagine and intend to move each vertebrae one at a time, one after the other. Taking your time. You might not have like the mental map of your spine or that connection, and that's okay. That will come with practice. We'll go for one more rep wherever you are. Rounding and then extending. Yep, taking your time. Whew. Awesome. All right. So next up, we're gonna get after the ankles. So now we do not want the shin moving. The easiest way I like to do this is just hook my elbow under, and then grab right here. I might even do this just to lock this in. So my leg's not moving, my shin is not moving. Okay. You could also just hug your knee. And yep, we're gonna now draw a big circle with our ankle. So as you're doing that, think about, we don't want the lower leg to move. We don't want the shin to move. It's only here. Yeah, nice, big, slow circle. Excellent. So we're trying to really isolate this and see how it feels. Try to push into the outermost range. And then same ankle. Let's go ahead and switch directions. So we'll go other direction. Same ankle. Nice and slow and controlled. There we go. Yeah, if you're really pushing that range, you might get a little crampy. Certainly you might get some fatigue in the lower leg, and that's normal. All right, and we'll switch it up. Okay, so same deal. You can hug your knee or you can hook your elbow under. Just want to stabilize this leg. And big ankle circle. Excellent. The knees and ankles are nice because you can do them in public without looking quite as weird. Hips, people tend to look, but that's okay. It's worth it. And let's switch directions now. So every day our body's a little different based on our experience, based on what we did the day or week before. Cars are a really awesome way to tune in and just reassess. It's also really nice because if we're doing them regularly, things are much less likely to sneak up on us, pain or stiffness or limitation, because if we're checking in daily, kind of taking inventory, it's easier to not let things fall through the cracks and address them in real time. All right, so you can relax there. And now we're going to get into some a 90-90 position. Love the 90-90. So for this one, great position to work on the hip rotation. We're going to do a little stretching. I'm going to have us get our left leg forward and right leg back. So you see here my left knee is kind of right in front of my belly. That knee is bent at about 90 degrees. Back knee is bent about 90 degrees. Like so. For me, to be most comfortable, I kind of prop myself up with this arm. So if you can get really level, that's great, but not an expectation. From here, I'm going to have us just acclimate to this position, take a moment, see what kind of stretch we find in each leg. And then we're going to do a little lean forward, lean back. So I'm going to have you help with your hands if you would like, but you don't have to. Lean forward into this stretch. So you're going to stretch that front hip. Oh yeah. Then you're going to come up, lean back. If you can, you're going to lean back this way toward your back hip. You might feel a bit of a stretch there. We don't want to go through pain, but I just want to see what we can do, and then we'll go back. So we'll do a couple more times. Forward. There we go. Nice. And then you can lean back. Into that nice stretch there. Awesome. And then we'll go one more time. And think about reaching that chest down a little bit, but forward. So you're trying to stretch forward, like you're keeping a long spine. Oh yeah. And then you can reach back. Getting a nice stretch there. All right. Then we're going to do one of my favorites. We're going to work on hip internal rotation, which is the most important movement for the hips. So that is, this back leg is going to rotate. The thigh is going to rotate internally, which is going to lift the ankle, in theory. So that's what we want to try. So I just want you to lift for a moment and back down. Gauge how that feels. So what you'll notice here is, like, I'm trying not to move my back or my pelvis. I'm just rotating and back down. There we go. Any extra hip internal rotation is great. You don't have to lift a lot, because the closer you are to your end range, the less you'll be able to lift, but the harder you'll be working. So that's great. That's what I want. I want us to be working a little bit. So if this is super easy, I want you to lean towards that back leg a little. Make it a little tougher to lift. Again, ankle weights. Great thing to use here. And you can relax there, but make a mental note of how that felt, or a physical note of how that felt. And we're going to ease out of there. Oh yeah. And then we'll shift positions. So we're going to go with the other side. That right leg forward now, the left leg back. I'm sure I've mentioned this to those of you who've been here before, but I sometimes like to, if I have an ottoman or a couch to my side, I'll just lean into it and scoop my body into it, and it'll kind of hold me up in position just to get extra time here for a stretch. So, find a spot there, take note of how this feels compared to the other side. Sometimes it's nice just to spend enough time that we can make a comparison, observe what our body is telling us. All right. Then we're going to do the same process. I'm going to have you lean forward, chest goes forward, find a stretch on that front hip, and then we're going to lean back. And you can even, if you rotate, notice how I'm sort of rotating a little bit toward that foot. That will give you probably more of a stretch as well. And then we'll come forward. You'll probably notice a difference one side to the other. So for example, for me, this side is harder than the last one we did. That's okay. We can certainly work towards symmetry, but it's unreasonable to expect to be symmetrical. There we go. And then we'll go forward. Yeah, humans aren't symmetrical. After all, we only have one heart, and it's not exactly centered. There we go. And then we'll lean back one more time here. Awesome. Alrighty. Then we're going to kind of come back into a position where you feel stable. You can use your hands to prop you up. And we're going to try those lifts. Now what you'll notice, for me, for example, this is harder on this side, so what I do is I lean forward a little bit, and that helps me get a lift off. Okay, so we're going to try and lift and use this part of the hip to Try to lift. After you get a few, if it's hard, you can lean a little more forward. If it's easy and you can lift a lot, then you could try to go back into more of a stretch to make it harder for you. Because I want you working a bit for this. Here we go. All right, looking good. We could just get a couple more there. Alrighty, then you can ease out of there. You can relax for a moment. Perfecto. And we are going to come up to standing. So we'll give those hips a little break. A little break for the hips, and we're gonna work the elbows. Alrighty. So for the elbows, they rotate just like the knees. I'm gonna have us practice that rotation first. So you can have your elbows kind of at your sides and bent about 90 degrees. Okay, and if you're cupping water in your hands, you're going to dump it out and then open up again. So this is elbow rotation. Boom and boom. And what I want you to think about is this whole part folding over. So my wrist it's moving, but it's moving as a product of the forearm turning over. So I want you to feel when you're rotating, these muscles, kind of like with the knee, I don't want you to feel the wrist so much, I want you to feel the muscles around your elbow and biceps working to rotate. It can be kind of subtle, but it does make a difference. So your wrists and hands are just going along for the ride. They're not doing the work. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing but starting down here. So just a couple reps, you're going to rotate, rotate. And we don't want the shoulders involved, so notice the difference between this and this, right? I don't want to turn my shoulder. There we go. So now we're going to go palms up like this, and we're going to do a nice bicep curl. So you're going to pull your palms as close to your shoulders as you can and squeeze, and then rotate as far as you can, palms out. Then push down, extend all the way, rotate, pull up and squeeze, nice, rotate, push down, rotate, pull up and squeeze, rotate down. Now from here, from the bottom position, we're going to hold this orientation. So we're reversing it. So we're going to pull the top of our hands up toward the shoulders. Then rotate. I like to think like opening a book. Then extend down. Then rotate, pull up, rotate, extend down. We'll do one more. Rotate, pull up, rotate, extend down. All right. And you can shake that out. So if you're, with any of these, you can create a lot of internal tension. And if you're creating a lot of tension and squeezing, that's surprisingly fatiguing. You can do it in all kinds of different positions. Really good for overall elbow health. All righty. So we're going to go now back to the hips. We're going to go into a butterfly position, and we're going to work on some isometrics to do some strengthening. So from here, we're going to go like this. Butterfly position. This is another one I wish I had a video of me trying this a long time ago, because I was like this. So what I want you to try to do is just find a stretch in this position. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And actually what I really like, which I think Rebecca you were doing, I actually love doing like this. It's a nice way to open up and warm up into this position. So I grab my feet, you could grab your ankles or your shins, and I'm just going to have you actively pull your knees up and then drive them down. Pull up, drive down. So as you pull up, especially if you pull into some tension there, you might feel your groin muscles working. As you drive away, I want you to try to feel your glutes, your butt working, to pry those hips away from each other. Yeah. Nice. Cool. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to prime that prying away. So what you can do is you can wrap your hands around your knees like this. And you can clasp your hands. I just grab one wrist like this. Because what I want you to do, we're going to do an isometric, and we're going to take your knees and push them into your arms. Okay, go ahead and push out. We're going to hold for about 10 seconds. There we go. Hold and relax. All right, so that's interesting. That might get the glutes working a little bit. You can relax. We're going to do one more of those, and with this isometric, our goal for the next one is to just slowly build up the tension. Start low, build it up as high as you can go. So you're really pushing out as hard as possible without pain or without passing out. Okay, those are the limitations. So we'll get in this position, ready, and go ahead just nice and gently start pushing the knees out into your arms. Feel your glutes working. I want you to slowly build that up. Push harder, push harder. Keep going as hard as you can safely go, and keep working for it. Get those hips working. Hold. 3, 2, 1, relax. Whew. All right. That's a fun one. So isometrics, awesome way to build strength safely, and it can also reduce inflammation. It tends to target connective tissue more. So what we're going to do now is an isometric, but at end range of motion. So that's going to be a little bit better for improving overall range of motion. So for the butterfly, what I like to do personally, what works for my structure and anatomy is I'll grab somewhere around my shin and push my elbows into my thighs or knees to get a nice big stretch. Okay, if something like that works for you, awesome. You could also just kind of push your arms like that. But doing this for me allows me to get some leverage to push. So I want you to find a stretch there. Okay, a reasonable stretch. You could also do this with your back against a wall. That sometimes helps for stability. And we're going to do an isometric here. It'll probably be a little tougher because we're in a stretched position. So I want you to just hold the stretch for now while I explain. But your intent is going to be to drive your knees into your arms as if you're trying to close them. But you're not going to let them move. So your arms are fighting. You're going to gradually push harder into your arms, and then we'll relax. Okay? But again, the goal is to maintain your biggest stretch here. So you're ideally not really going to be moving. Maybe a little shaking. Okay, so we'll start nice and slow. You're in a stretched position. Go ahead and start trying to push your knees and thighs into your arms. You're going to feel the inner thigh groin muscles working. Gradually build up that intensity. A little harder. Good. Keep pushing. And we're going to work to the highest intensity you can handle and hold. 3, 2, 1, relax. Whew. Awesome. All right, and that's where some of this feels good. Great. So this is also a great strategy for if you have range of motion limitations or tightness that just doesn't go away with stretching, add some of these isometrics. Can make a huge difference. Before we move on, we're going to add in some hip rotations. Always nice to reinforce some of those isometrics with joint rotation. So I'm going to be pull one heel up, and you can put it wherever really. And we're going to rotate in, rotate out. So we're just going to get some nice big hip rotation. Awesome. Looking good. It's amazing what adding even a little bit of extra hip rotation can do. Here we go. We'll do a couple more. So as I mentioned earlier, I've got an MRI scheduled, but I had a session with a doctor yesterday, and he suggested it seems pretty likely that I have a torn ACL, if not more, in my right knee. And let's switch to the left here, possibly the left knee too. But the reason I bring it up is I have worked really hard on hip mobility, ankle mobility, knee mobility, and strength. And despite structural damage, however severe it might be, we can function well with good training. So fortunately, most of the people I work with don't have a bunch of torn ligaments. Hopefully you don't. But despite that, with this hip work, ankle work, knee work, etc., you can really mitigate a lot of pain and discomfort and tension. All right. Oh, yeah. Whew. All right. Cool. So we got that hip stuff going. What we're going to do next is we're going to shift into a little bit for the shoulders, a little bit more for the shoulders. So for this, you can change position depending on what is comfortable for you. What I often do is I'll sit on a block. Most of us have done this before, and we're gonna rest the arm on our thigh and rotate it. Now you could also, like for example, Rebecca, you've got a bench there. Whatever is comfortable. I just want to be able to rest the arm on something so that we can rotate. So I want you to imagine where the upper body or upper arm is rotating, going down, and then rotating back up. Now, my shoulders also have had a lot of injuries, got some tears in there, of course. Why not, add to the fun. So I want you to not mimic me, but rotate as far as you can. Okay, so I don't want the shoulder blade and the shoulder like hiking up like that or rolling. But if this is staying solid, I want you rotating as far as you can in both directions. There we go. Nice. So I was reflecting on injuries and tears and all that last night, and sometimes it's kind of exciting to hear like, oh, there's something underlying that could be very wrong, because if you can function despite that, it's kind of empowering, right? If you can train your body to overcome these things, pretty awesome. So now you can relax that shoulder for a moment. We are going to do eccentrics. So when it comes to building connective tissue strength, tendons, ligaments, the stuff that tends to get injured and tear, we want to do it at length, so like isometrics in a stretch position, or to length, meaning we are stretching as we're working. So for eccentrics, the goal is to stretch your tissues while you're fighting against the stretch. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to pull our arm with our other arm into internal rotation, which is this. So if my end range is about here, I'm going to start up here. We're not going to start all the way back, but I'll demonstrate real quick, and you can play along if you would like, but then we're going to do another rep. So I'm going to start pulling against this arm like they're fighting, but I'm not going to let it move until I have a lot of tension. Then my top arm is going to start winning, and it's going to be fighting this arm down. So what I feel is stretch in this muscle, but also a lot of fatigue and burning. So we're going to do a nice big slow rep. We're going to relax for a moment, then we're going to do a couple more. All right, so really good for strengthening, and it can get kind of burning pretty quickly. Don't push through pain, please. So let's go for it. Maybe you already did one or two, but I want you to start without moving. Start pulling with the top arm. It's going to have a leverage advantage. Once you feel it really working, then that top arm is going to start winning. The bottom arm is rotating down, but fight for it. Fight for it. Don't let it go too fast. Once you get to the absolute end of your stretch, I want you to hold it there for a couple seconds and then relax. Okay, shake it out a moment. The more effort we put into that, the more strength we can create. It's going to create better mobility, but also much more resilient tendons and muscles. All right, so we're going to go again. Same deal. Go ahead and pull. They're fighting each other. And that top arm is winning. Slowly. Slowly winning, slowly winning. Stretching that bottom shoulder as it's fighting. Hold that bottom position. As you get down to that bottom position, that deepest stretch, I want you to try to hold it for a couple seconds, and then you can relax. Whew. All right, we'll go for one more. We're going to take a little extra time. So you can do this with a bunch of other movements. You can do it with push-ups, squats, etc. Here, we're focusing really specifically on this shoulder rotation. Okay, final rep. Final rep. Ready. Start with that build up. So pull, build up that tension, and then top arm is winning. Top arm is winning. Excellent. Pull down, pull down, pull down. You're still fighting for it. At the depth of your stretch, hold for a couple seconds, still working, and then relax. Whew. All right, you can shake that out a little bit. It also shows that with really specific inputs, you can seriously fatigue yourself with very little equipment. just self-work. Huh. All right. So take a moment. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So one of the fun parts about this or challenges is that both arms are working the whole time because one is pulling and one is resisting. So the one that was just being stretched is now the aggressor. So however you want to set yourself up, we're resting this arm. We're going to start with just some of this rotation first. So we're going to prime the movement. As with the hips, shoulder rotation, external and internal is really important. Internal, which is what we're working on, is more important. That is really the big key. So if you notice challenges with strength or range of motion internally, that's a big priority that we want to address. I didn't mention on the other side, but as you're coming down, if you think about gradually bringing the hand and wrist more toward your body, you will probably find a deeper stretch versus letting it drift away from your body. Okay, it's that time. We're going to do the eccentrics, same process. Okay, we'll come up and start that fight. All right, start pulling, but don't let it move yet. Build tension first. Good. Now the bottom arm is going to give in. Top arm is winning. We're fighting into that internal rotation as deep as you can go. Slowly, once you hit the depth of that stretch, hold for a moment and relax. Take a little break there. Awesome. So I've mentioned this to some people in some emails and posts, but a lot of training plans don't incorporate a lot of this, which can be very problematic. I'll continue this thought in a moment. Let's go for another rep. Okay, ready. Go ahead and start fighting that top arm or that with the top arm. Good. Top arm is winning now. Bottom arm's giving in slowly. Good. Really make it work. Find that stretch, make it work. The bottom arm's still fighting, trying to push back up. At the very bottom, it's holding on, and then relax. So if you follow football or a lot of sports in training camp, early on, there's a lot of injuries, non-contact. Achilles, ACL, all these tendons and ligaments. And these are massive, strong people who can lift a ton of weight. But I suspect that a lot of their training does not look like this. And if more of it did, they would probably be a little more prepared for that. Okay, we get to do one more. Here we go. So, ready. And start that tension. Build it up. Great. And now that top arm's working. Top arm's winning. Fighting into the stretch. Pushing, pushing, pushing. Keep finding that deep stretch. Keep that bottom arm working. Don't let it give up. Very end, it's holding for a couple seconds. And relax. Woo! Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So yeah, another thing with the tendons and muscles is that muscles adapt more quickly. So you can make your muscles capable of producing more force than your tendons can handle. With isometrics and eccentrics that we're working on, that's going to preferentially train the tendons. So that's a way we can sort of balance out some of the training. Now we're going to do just a couple shoulder cars to kind of reinforce that. So again, anytime we're really training heavily with isometrics or eccentrics, cars are a great way to reinforce. So we're going to go double shoulder cars. So I'm going to have you cross in front like so, reach up, rotate, palms, thumbs, arms, rotate as you reach back behind you. And then towards your back side. Then you can reverse. I'll show you this angle. Reaching back, rotate, reach up, cross in front, and down. And we'll go for one more. Okay? Crossing in front, reaching up, rotate, reach way back behind toward your backside, and then reverse, palms toward the sky, rotate thumbs, rotate palms, reach up overhead, cross in front, and down. Excellent. Whew, all right. Now we're gonna come up to standing. Doing great. We're going to do a few more things. So I'm going to have you do some ankle stuff. So I'm going to show, we did eccentrics there for the shoulders. And this is another one that's probably more familiar to most people, which is just like ankle eccentrics. So you can hold on to something if you would like. I prefer to do that even if you're not taking off weight, you're helping balance. But we're going to push through the balls of our toes, or balls of our feet, as high as we can go, and then just very slowly come down. Okay? So with a true eccentric, what we want is the force on the way down is more than we can handle. So you're essentially just slowly failing. For most of us, my guess is, especially if it's with 2 feet, you can handle that force. Okay, one way that you can make this more intense is by getting your feet up onto an elevated surface, right? So that on the way down, you have a little bit more way to go. So if you have that ability, a yoga block, a step, a wedge, you can try that. Just please don't fall. Okay, so you can come up. Again, with the eccentrics, the goal is the way down, the stretching is where we want to exert most of our effort. So you can use help, you can make it really easy to come up, and then you can slowly lower down. All right, if this feels pretty manageable for you, another way you can do it is go up on 2, okay, and then take one away, come down slow on 1. So you're coming down, there's more force on the way down. So you could go up on 2, come down on 1. So you can try, let's try a couple reps with each side doing that. And you can observe, are there differences there? You can also do this holding weight to make it more challenging. Our ankles, ideally, can absorb massive, massive amounts of force. That Achilles tendon is enormous. But doing this is a good way to help strengthen it. Yeah. So you can do a couple more reps. It's looking good. So this is something I do isometrics and eccentrics a ton for my ankles. As much as I like to run and jump, it's very, very key. And after your next rep, you can relax for a moment. I'm going to show you one more eccentric that I just love. I don't know how well I'll be able to demonstrate it with how my knees have been lately, but whether or not you have joint stuff or whatever, you can use help for this. But what I'm going to show you is a single leg eccentric. So this is also great. Let's say you can't do a single leg squat. Like if you're down on the ground, you have trouble, standing up would be really tough. One way you can work on that strength, work on resilience, is an eccentric. So you would start up and you would really slowly come down. And what you can do is you can hold on to something to make sure it's safe. You could, if you know there's a certain depth where you can get to without pain, awesome. You could use that as your target. So I could go here, I could go really slow until I get down to my target. And then, remember, the way up, easy. So you can focus, essentially your goal, whatever leg is working, you can use whatever you need for balance, but load that leg up as much as you can, make it as heavy as possible, and then slowly fail on the way down. And you can make the way up really easy. Really easy. Okay? Slowly fail. So try a couple on one leg, and once you're ready for it, you can try the other side. So a couple things that this does, we are stronger eccentrically, which means you have a better chance of controlling the full range going down than coming up. As I said before, this is going to recruit a little more connective tissue, tendon, which is good. It also helps bridge the gaps. So if coming up, like I said, you can't stand from here, well, how do you get experience producing force in those ranges you can't get to? Do it on the way down. Yeah. Looking good. So you can just go for maybe one more rep per leg there. This is looking great. I appreciate you all humoring me on this. It's not easy. But again, you can find whatever you need, change the range of motion, add help, add weight, whatever works for you to challenge it safely. Because especially if you're being active, you're playing sports or living life, you're probably going to end up in some of these positions and your body's going to have to produce some force. Yeah. Awesome. Whew. All right. And that is all the fun for today. Awesome work. Thank you all for joining.